SaaS Therapy.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of SaaS Therapy, the show where we help you save your most important business relationships, your customers. I'm your host, Todd Kirk. I'm joined by the ever-present co-host of mine, Casey Trujillo. And today, we are pleased to have a wonderful guest. We brought on Jordan Morrow. Jordan Morrow has been a longtime friend of Casey and I's. Used to work together in a previous life. Jordan is currently the Senior Vice President of Data and AI Transformation of Agile One. He's also the owner and founder of Bodhi Data. Basically, he's an awesome author and kind of the father of data literacy, at least when it comes to helping people understand that they are not good at data. Ultimately, super awesome nerd. We love this guy. Jordan, welcome to SaaS Therapy, my friend.
Thank you very much. Now, I'm going to correct you. Everybody is good at data. They just don't realize it. Like, we use our weather apps all the time to figure out what to wear, what's the weather going to be. That's data-driven decision-making. We just don't think of it that way. So my goal is to help everybody just move along a little bit faster.
That's awesome. I am upset that we have Jordan on this podcast, Todd, because I will, for the first time, admit publicly to our audience that this is someone that takes their health and fitness more than I do. So I am disappointed to recognize that on a podcast, that this man's running ultras. He's doing all sorts of crazy stuff. And, at the ripe old age of 20s, he can still do that. So that's good to know. Jordan, I usually ask 3 questions that are kind of like, would you rather questions? But I'm going to skip that today, man, because right. I want you just to dive in and talk to people about you talk about data literacy. You have 3 books, a 4th one coming out. You did one for kids to help kids understand data literacy, what this is, what it's all about. Like you said at the beginning, it sounds like something that's not that you can't comprehend, that it's an analyst somewhere in the back room coming out with information. Yeah. But you make it so simple to understand. So give people in a couple minutes, what is data literacy and why should they care?
Yeah, first off, that was too modest of you. And Todd and I both know how fit you are, how seriously you take your health. So I disagree with the statement, but and we'll find data to prove where we sit. Yeah. How about that? No, so happy to discuss this because it's one of those. And I do have a weird nickname out there. I'm not sure how I feel about it. That's the godfather of data literacy. And that's only because I was one of the first ones to pioneer and invent the whole space. And as we described a little bit in the introduction there to Todd's point, do you use your phone to check out the weather? We do. Do you use a gas gauge to check when you need to fill a tank? We do. If you're a sports fanatic, do you check the metrics to see what's going to happen? We do. We use data on the regular, but that doesn't mean people are comfortable and confident in using data in a business setting. So a story will illustrate kind of the misunderstanding around data literacy that you brought out there, Casey, and that was, I was on the trails once. I love running in the mountains here in Utah. And after my first book came out, someone I knew was coming up a trail as I was going down. She congratulated me. And then she said, I'm probably too stupid to read it, which is the complete opposite of what we want to be thinking about. When we think about the world that we live in today from a data and AI perspective, I want you to picture an organization of 10,000 people. 50 to 100 of them are data and AI professionals by trade and title. That's it. Right? 90 to 99% of people are not data professionals by title. They don't get their degrees in statistics, mathematics, the stuff I love. That's not what they want to do. But we live in a time, and you're seeing it, I'm sure, with all that you're doing around SaaS Therapy and the companies you work with, where you look at the metrics on usage and adoption and it's low. And is it because the tools aren't good? The answer is no. The tools are wonderful, right? The companies have built wonderful products, but there's a confidence and a comfort in it. And so when we think about data and AI literacy, it's more of, can we help you develop skills that makes you confident to be able to use data and make more informed decisions? That then translated forward with AI, because now AI, which has been around, by the way, the term was coined all the way back in 1956. A lot of people don't know that. But now ChatGPT made it super consumable. And it has altered the world. Anyone who doesn't know that or realize that is not seeing it for what's really happening. But I don't need everyone to be an AI engineer. I don't need everyone to know statistics. Can I help you develop skills that make you more confident in what you're doing? That's it. So that's how we should be thinking about data and AI is these are your partners, not things to supersede you. And the final thing I'll note here is you'll hear me talk about it all the time. I'm a huge advocate that the human element doesn't go away. The human element is a key partner to these things. Yes, jobs will be lost. We know it. Jobs will be created. But the key is, how do we deploy these things to help get jobs done better? There's your answer right there. And so we teach skills. We teach things to help them do that.
You know, Jordan, the audience that Casey and I work with, the concept of data and the concept of AI are both really hot button topics for them.
Yep.
But most of the people who are on our show, they work for SaaS companies. Most of them are in some level of customer support, customer success, customer education. Maybe if they're a senior level leader, maybe customer experience as a whole. And they all know that they need to be looking at data, and they all know they need to be using AI. But I think a lot of them probably struggle to understand what the kind of the best places to start are.
Yeah.
Because data as a whole, right? And I know that you've got a great framework for how to think about the way you use data. And I think a lot of times people don't know what they should track, how they should track it, even understanding where they are in their maturity level around data. And maybe that'd be a good place to have a discussion around how can we help people who have to use data and AI really start being able to just wrap their head around where they are and where they want to go.
Happy to do this because you're hitting the most salient point when it comes to data and AI. You're getting after the hype that exists around it. And there's so much freaking hype around these things. And don't get me wrong, generative AI changed the world. Anyone who doesn't believe me needs to just have 30 minutes with me and I'll show you how. Does it mean it changed it in such a way that we need to view everything differently? The answer is no. It also created a stream of hype that is massive. Oh, AI will do this. It'll solve this. And I come at data and AI from an extremely practical perspective. And that is around what is your business strategy? Well, guess what your data and AI strategy is? It's how are you using data and AI to support your business strategy? I just wrote it for you. It's that simple. If I see a data and AI strategy that is full of buzzwords, I'm going to blow it apart, right? Because they're not doing probably most of what they say in that buzzword-filled strategy. But number two, the way that we overcome the hype and figure out where to start is we figure out what is it that we're working on? What are the pain points that we're working on? What story needs to be told to us to help us understand what's going on? That story is your data strategy. That's how you start to use data. From an AI perspective, a lot of people don't know where to begin. I'm going to say you determine use cases. And those use cases are going to drive where to implement AI. It was really interesting. At the company I'm at, I built my first AI initiative was about a 3-month POC. That 3-month POC, you're going to have all these people be like, what are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing? And I'm like, no. If I just go and buy a tool, I'm going to lose. I need to buy the right tool that supports the right use case that I have determined. Lo and behold, we did it. And data supported it. So this is how you combine these things. My proof of concept is I took a look at the sales group and I said, and sometimes our sales group is responding to requests for proposal, 100 plus questions that one person took in 15 hours. I put a generative model around it and said, tell me how it's working. It now took him 2 hours. 15 hours down to 2. That's 13 hours of ability to paint a new picture, to dive deeper and do that. That was a practical AI use case. So to your point on the overwhelming, do not start with a tool. Do not start with the data. Start with pain points, start with use cases, and start with your business objectives. Then your target then becomes the strategy of what tools support that use case or that strategy. Then we figure out, do we have the ability to do it? Do we need to reskill? Do we have the literacy that needs to be there? Do we have clean data? Garbage in, garbage out. That's what you're always going to hear. So the starting point needs to be reframed away from the tools and technology to the solutions we're trying to accomplish. And that'll help in anything, because if we understand the solutions, then we can figure out what data supports that. What usage do we need to find? Standard metrics are high level. Everybody wants them. I want to dig deeper. Well, I need to know what I'm trying to accomplish to do that. So if your listeners are trying to figure out, where do I really implement this? Start by saying, what do I really want to do? And then you take a step back and say, what data would support that? What AI would support that? Don't start with the tools. If you start with the tools, your success is going to be struggling quite a bit, because the tool, all cool and sexy, might not accomplish what you're looking for it to do.
Awesome. Jordan, I heard a religious leader once say when they were thinking about a sermon to give on a Sunday, they would say, "Would that preach?" And Jordan, what you just said there, that
Yeah.
preaches. That was awesome, man. And again, for those that don't follow Jordan on LinkedIn, follow him. He comes and does these workshops for you. Like he said, he has a consulting side of what he does. So, reach out to him, get some of this great information into the hands of your organization. Jordan, I have a question for you. So I'm going to use sports because I use sports.
Yeah.
Please don't turn this episode off for those that don't follow sports, because what the question is going to be will be very applicable here. So for the first time ever, the Boston Celtics are shooting more 3-pointers than they are 2-pointers. And they won the championship last year, and they look really good this year. And their coach says, I'm looking at the data, and the data tells me I will win more games by shooting 3-pointers if we shoot at a certain percentage, obviously. But then there's people out there that say, oh, that's such a bad idea. Take the easy 2-pointer. Why aren't you doing this? Jordan, at what point, because we all know that we can manipulate data to say what we want it to say. How do you let data just speak for data? Like, how do you take the biasy out from humans in looking at the data? I know it's not possible. I know you can't actually do it, but are there some principles, some frameworks that you coach people on so that I'm not using the data and what I'm receiving and interpreting in the way that supports my case versus just letting the data speak for itself? What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I have many, as you can imagine. I delivered a workshop just this morning where we talked about bias and how do you remove bias. You nailed it in one way there, and that is you're not going to be able to get rid of it all. You're just not. There's too many systemic data biases, and this isn't talking the horrific racial bias and all that, even though that can weave its way into data. This is more systemic data bias, confirmation bias, recency bias, all these different things. Now, there's multiple things to talk about what you just did. Number one, I think I might have mentioned in my 4th book that comes out next month how data has helped what shaped the 3-pointers that are being shot today. It is a total shift in the way that the game is played. I come, if you were to see over my shoulder here, my favorite player was David Robinson. I've got his jersey hanging up right there. He comes from an era of physicality and defense and all that. The game that I love. I struggle with the game today, but I understand why they do it. It is data informed that drives it. Now, how do we get rid of bias is a very challenging thing. This is where data literacy initiatives come into play. You'll hear me say probably over and over, emotions should not determine fact. Fact should determine emotions. That is a very difficult thing for people to do because we are emotion-driven humans. That might go back millennia to when you had cavemen saying, eat that berry, don't eat that berry. This one kills me. That one that makes me feel good about myself, right? All of that can be driven to we are emotional people. So it's a challenge. We don't want to say emotion can't be a part of it, but through a data literacy initiative, we want objectivity to be a part of the emotional discussion. The other thing that is key to helping this happen so that we're not sitting here saying, wait, does my gut feel and intuition never count? No, the human element is a huge part of this. One of the things that I teach people is your gut feel and intuition, what do you think it was probably based off of in a lot of cases? Personal data experiences. We just don't call it a personal data experience. The example I use is imagine you're a firefighter and you're fighting a fire and you hear a popping noise, and 8 out of 10 times you knew that meant the floor collapsed, so you got people out. That would be your gut feel probably saying, we need to get everybody out, but it came because of multiple experiences with that. So never sell yourself short. Data points that come from you should be a part of the equation. What we want to do with data and AI is combine it to make smart decisions. Now, how do we know it's the smart decision? Don't let perfection or analysis paralysis get in the way. Be innovative and say, let's test this, let's test that, let's drive this, let's drive that. We'll see which one of these sticks, and we will always be iterating on what is sticking so that we're making smart decisions. I think far too often, right, data and AI are kind of seen as maybe nebulous or intimidating. They sit on the side. Well, maybe personal computers did that to people before. The internet did that to people before. Smartphones did that to people before. Now they're ubiquitous in everything we do. Data literacy should just be empowering people to use data as a tool to make decisions. Going back to the NBA, right? you're now seeing a complete shift in how the game is played. I miss the old way, but I understand why they do it the way they do now is the data informed them in a way that they could apply it. And then they applied it and found out it worked. And when they found out it worked, you now see a shift. Steph Curry has changed that game, right? I have a rugby. My favorite sport is rugby. I have a jersey upstairs from a team. It's a guy I coach with. His cousin played for England's national team, played professionally. And on the back, I think it has the holder for a device, keeping track probably of who knows how many metrics to make decisions off of how you play the game. So that's a part of it, though. And that's what I want to make very clear here. Humans need to be a part of it. Gut feel, intuition, creativity, curiosity, allow data and AI to be your partner, not this weird thing that's just there to make the decisions for you. No, it's there to help you make all those decisions.
You know, one of the things that I love that, Jordan, I think one of the things that I worry about, or that I think I see happen too often, is that, like, if we were to, I'll stick with the basketball analogy and then move to a business context. But, you know, if you knew that shooting more threes led you to win more games, but that causes you just to only shoot threes, then you become one dimensional and you're not actually interpreting the data correctly. And like a real example that I've seen before in SaaS companies is something like, hey, we know that our close rate, if we do a sales call and we do a demo with a customer, let's say we know that we're closing 25% of our demos. So we can grow our revenue if we just get double the demos. So then what they go out is they start scheduling really crappy demos that don't go anywhere. And then you're like, well, why didn't we close twice as many deals? In fact, for some reason, our close rate went down worse and we closed less deals than we did when we started, and we got twice as many demos. So what I see sometimes people do with data is they use the information that they got as like this like silver bullet, like it's a simple formula. And they don't take the mental effort to actually understand the underlying reasons why certain things are happening, so they make more informed decisions. And how do you get people out of that? Like, I'm going to make a decision based off of a data point that is actually a really poorly informed decision that leads to a really bad outcome. How do you balance that?
You're tapping into one of my favorite terms in the world, and that is critical thinking. I have what I call the 3 C's of data literacy: curiosity, creativity, and critical thinking. And I'll talk about that here in a minute. But you bring up a very salient point, and that is we latch onto things that we feel comfort with. That's the silver bullet. Generative AI. That's the solution. Oh, look at this. That's the data point to do. There's a law in statistics, and I won't mention many laws of statistics and things today or formulas, but there is a law in statistics called Goodhart's Law that says when a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure. So to your point, we know we close more with these calls. We now have a target for more calls. It became a bad measure, and we're measuring off of it. The other thing that is really important is diversity of thought, right? We can get so tunnel vision when it comes to data and AI points that the moment that it doesn't go the way, we start to push it away and we become data cynics versus just realizing we were doing it wrong ourselves. So the human element you're seeing, I was at an event just this week, and this was, I think they're a private equity firm, and I was delivering the keynote at this event. And it's funny how often, like, we don't understand that when it comes to data, technology, software, SaaS companies, all of this, 90 to 99% of what you have to do deals with the people, right? It has nothing to do with the technology because we get so caught up. There's my winning bullet. There's my winning metric. There's this. And we forget diversity of thought. We forget innovation, and we forget critical thinking. Part of this on the critical thinking side is quite literally, there's a great book out there by Johann Harrari called Stolen Focus. And in it, on the back cover, you don't even have to go into it. In the back cover, it says teenagers, if I get my metric right, can focus on one task for 90 seconds. And we laugh at that because I have teenagers. Oh my gosh, that's so true. Adults are 3 minutes. So we shouldn't give ourselves a pat on the back too much. Our focus has been distracted so easily with technology, social media, with the dopamine hits and everything like that, that this ability to critically think and say something different might be happening here is hard. So what I encourage people to do, I'm sorry, I'm going to be recommending a lot of books. I will get you the name so you can put it in the show notes. But there's another book by Newport called Deep Work. Our brain has capacity for 4 hours of deep work a day. That's it. Very few of us get 4 hours of deep work. And we're not talking building a PowerPoint. We're not doing, no,
Yeah.
we're talking shutting things down and reflecting. There's a reason meditation is good for our health, right? I think you could call it work meditation, where I'm sitting here taking 30 minutes a day to look at metrics and say, does that make sense? Is there another way to look at this? Is my curiosity, the first C of data literacy, taking over and allowing me to create 50 questions that I then can critically think on, turn to the people who have answers, and we start to dig. What we're creating there is a culture of data-driven and AI-driven informed decision making. And that matters. It's people, right? I can give you all the data in the world, but if they don't know how to use it, what solutions are we going to get? So to your point, Todd, we're looking at this lack of ability to focus in on the data and a lack of ability to critically think on it. And I think if companies really want data to take off, they have to schedule time where things get shut off and you're just reflecting on the data in front of you to get better solutions from it.
Jordan, so good. I'm gonna give you another great compliment. You're just a freaking nerd, man. I love it.
I am. I love it.
The other great thing is, I've known you for some time, and your progression, your presentation, making it so just understandable has just increased. You were good, but you're getting great. So just some compliments to you right there at the get-go. I'm going to give you a real example, Jordan, from a software vendor. So a software vendor that produces an application. They spent millions of dollars on their AI solution. They built a big strategy for FY25 around this new AI capability. I'm going to give you a data point, and then I'm going to pretend that you're a consultant coming in and helping this software vendor. What would be some questions you would be asking to help them understand what's taking place? So here's the data point. They let me know that they've released out their AI feature and capabilities. Less than 3% of their total licensed users, so people that have bought their product, less than 3% have ever clicked on their AI button. And less than 1% have done it more than once. So there's the data point. Jordan, what questions would you be asking this organization to help them understand so they don't do what Todd just said and you latch onto one thing? Oh, it's because our account executives aren't talking about it enough, or our customer success people, or our marketing's really bad around it. What would be some questions you would be asking these group of people around that one data point? How do you get people critically thinking? How do you get them curious? How do you do all those things you just said with just that one scenario? I know I'm not giving you a ton of information, but
no, that's
help
great.
People kind of start thinking through this a little bit.
Number one, I am going to ask, tell me what your strategy is with companies who have bought your software. Show me. I want you to lay out for me everything you are trying to do to get them to use this product, all of it. And then I'm going to dissect it, right? What does the training look like? How does the training roll out? What was your change management program that you put in place to get this? Because the moment a company buys software, it is a change. It is 100% a change. And the moment that is there, what change management principles were you deploying? Let me talk real quick about data and AI. I created at my company within the first 3-4 months I was here, a change management playbook for data and AI. I am fundamentally helping to change our company. Not everyone wants to get on board. The average tenure at our company is like 9.5 years. People love it. I'm about to blow them apart in some degree. Now, and I'll get to a third thing here. But so number one, what is your strategy to get people to use this? What change management did you do? I want to see what the training is that they go through. We talked about this pre-recording, so I'll talk about it now. Are you teaching the tool or are you teaching principles? Are you using use cases and solutions, or are you training how to point and click? Because if you're training how to point and click, good luck getting them to do it. They're going to go back to doing what they do. Number 4, have you taught them what's in it for them? And I mean truly taught them what's in it for them, right? The person buying the tool, you might be buying it for 5,000 people. You might have told them what's in it for them, but did you teach 4,999 others what's in it for them? And my 5th, and maybe the biggest one, is the company itself that purchased your tool. Tell me the buy-in that you got from leadership, not lip service. I want to know what buy-in existed at leadership. The reason for that is if you don't have leaders who are getting behind it, pushing it out, telling them to use it, telling them why we went this way, that's part of change management. good luck. They're going to go back, let's say, to Microsoft Excel and just be like, I'm good here. There's more powerful tools. So what we're doing is we are looking at all these elements that, again, do not deal with the technology. It deals with the people. And if we focus on the technology, oh, but you could do this with it and you could do that with it. That's great. Did you sit down with them and say, tell me your problems? I will show you how our tool solves your problem. That's what's in it for them. Did you go into it and say, click here, click here, click here? Or did you go in and say, this solves problems in this manner? That is a shift in thinking. This is actually, you could say, what data literacy kind of did, is because data vendors, which are SaaS companies, would sell the tool and adoption rates aren't great, just like with everything else. Like think of Tableau, Power BI. If you want me to sit down with a company and don't tell me, oh, 30% are using it. No, they're just using it like Excel. Are 30% using it in a powerful way? I would argue probably not. So how can we make that happen? The big one that I want to focus on real quick is the buy-in from leadership and why this matters so much. I was in I go back to South Africa. I've been there twice in like the last 3 months, so it's on my mind. I was doing a workshop there, and someone asked a very interesting point, and that was, if I learn a technology and then it moves forward, basically, is that training obsolete at that point? And I changed their focus. Don't focus on learning the technology. Focus on learning principles that can be applied to a technology. That way, when it advances, you're sitting in a better position for the advancement of that technology. It is the same thing when an organization sells their tool, their SaaS, whatever it is. If you are focused on your tool, you have lost the battle. If you are focused on truly having the conversation with that company, leaders, do you understand why you just bought this tool? No, we're going to spend half a day. I don't care what you say, you purchased it. You're going to dedicate half a day to really get to the nuts and bolts of this and why you have to be a vocal evangelist for this technology. One area that needs to be focused on, mid-level leadership. So let's say it's a SaaS company that is sold to a bunch of these front-end users. They're not managed by senior leadership. They are managed by mid-level leadership. Did you focus your time with mid-level leaders to teach them how to lead out with this new technology? Because if you didn't, they don't know how. They might have ideas and they might figure it out, but they might not know how. So you've got to focus not only on selling to the seniors, but mid-level leaders who have to lead out on everybody who is now using the technology. And then finally, those end users, teach them principles, not the tool, and teach them what's in it for them. That's an old thing, but they need to know, if I do this versus my old job, where's my benefit? Because if they don't see it, why would I transition from my old job and learn this new thing? I'm not saying that's going to get you from 3% to 90%, but that's the beginning point, because we started to see what the strategy really was. Then you progress forward in what you're trying to do.
Okay, Jordan, I'm trying to process that because there was a lot of good nuggets in there. And the thing that jumps out to me in that conversation is that I think so often when we use data, we tend to focus a whole lot on the tools and how to change the tools, and not so much on the people and how to change what the people understand so that they can use the tools better. And obviously the when we live in the SaaS world, so much of our world revolves around the tool, not necessarily around the people who are having to use that tool. And it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but you would suggest that data needs to be built more around understanding people than it is about understanding the tools or the processes 100%. Or the systems.
100%. So for example, let's use data itself for a minute. If I created a data literacy initiative across an organization of 500 people and it was one size fits all, how quickly did I lose that audience? Pretty quickly. Instead, I'm going to focus and say, where are my data professionals? You sit over here. Let me train you this way. Where are my senior leaders? You're here. You're going to be trained this way. Mid-level, you're here. Entry-level, here. It takes more upfront work, but the long-term benefit should be better because it was a more personified way of looking at it. You're spot on, Todd. I'm not saying don't focus on the tool, but the way you design the tool should be focused on the behavior of the audience you're selling to. And when you understand that audience in and out, you've got one group that is so in love with this aspect, Can I then, as a salesperson at this company, focus the way I talk to them on the aspect over here that focuses over there? And this puts a lot of pressure in a good way, I think, on salespeople and consultants for the SaaS companies. It is incumbent on them to quit trying to hit a number and trying to build the person into a better user of their product. The numbers should follow. This is Goodhart's law. Right. Numbers are like the measure becomes a target. It's no longer a measure. If you're focused on a number, you're pushing things out, not necessarily getting usage. That could create relationship problems very quickly, partnership problems. But if I sit here as a salesperson and I meet with them more individually, I'm not just meeting with the buyer, I'm doing focus groups with everybody. I can then say, fine, hey buyer, give me a week. I'm going to show you. I did a survey with everyone. Let me show you that out of 10 questions, we can solve 8 of them with the tool, and the other 2 we're happy to work on with you. It's much different than jumping in there and let me show you the shiny object. That's not going to drive that's not going to drive usage as effectively as I got to know them, I know what they need, and I showed them right where the tool goes.
Jordan,
okay.
you
go.
You had a follow-up, Todd. Go.
Because I have a follow-up to this, and you made me think of something. I think you might find this fascinating. Just this morning, I pulled some data over a survey that we did of about 4,000 end users over the last couple of months recently. And what we asked them was, we said, I'm going to give you 5 options, and I want you to tell me what do you think would have the biggest impact on your ability to learn technology? And the things we asked them was, allow me to choose what I'm going to learn. Give me content recommended based off of what tools I use today. Attend instructor-led training. Allow me to search for stuff that I want answers to, or send me proactive tips of things that I need to have. What was fascinating to me is, what would you guess out of those 5 were the top ones?
It'd be very interesting to me from a behavioral perspective. Was it that they get to choose it on their own?
Yeah, that's what I would say.
That was the top one. Yes. The top one was, I want to choose it. What do you think the least favorite was? Attend instructor-led training by a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do? We do the opposite.
Yeah, exactly.
But what's interesting, I want to point something out, though. They might say, let me choose on my own. But if you were to give them a library and let them do that, their jobs are too busy to make that happen.
Yes. So that's what's so crazy. This is the part that I love, that this data, right? This is 4,000 end users. So we're not talking a small sample set.
Yeah.
The number one thing was, let me choose the topic, but almost equal was recommend content to me based off of what I use. And guess what? The third part that really stuck me, that was in a close third behind that, was send me proactively what I should do. Right.
Yep.
So the top choice was, let me choose. But the next 2 choices behind that were, let me choose, but also tell me what to do.
But tell me,
right?
I've got to share a funny adage on this one. We always sit here and think that more choices is better. But my analogy on that is, you ever been to the Cheesecake Factory and seen that bloody menu? Right, it's freaking huge, and it's frustrating. My wife and I went out the other day at a restaurant we had been to. It'd been a while. I'm like, this is too big. Sometimes, yes, we love the idea around choice, but we also want the proactive side of it. Because this is where I think SaaS companies need to get more customized in how they deploy. Because you might go to a company that is quite literally, everybody wants the instructor to come in, so you design it that way. It's almost having a buffet of choices for your clients, and you allow them to build it out, versus that one size fits all. And when you do it that way, oh, by the way, in my 5th book, you guys are getting a sneak peek here, I bring emotional intelligence to data and AI. Awesome. Because, for example, AI scares people, as it probably should to some degree. If I were to go in as an AI strategist and just not focus on emotional intelligence of the audience I'm working with, are they going through situations? Did they go through that? Prime example, this year I was working with Nike. We did a workshop or 2. We were supposed to do another one like in April or May. We postponed because they went through restructuring. And we said, not the right frame of mind, not the right time. I went back in September, months later. That emotional intelligence that leaders need to develop around everything we're talking about is so key, because I think far too often, again, not that we can't focus on building amazing products. Yes, we should build amazing products. But if the users don't want to use it, we've lost. So there's emotional intelligence. There's understanding the psychology of, yeah, they probably think they want to choose on their own. But the moment you say, fine, go choose what's going to help you best, they're like, I don't know where to start. AI. Oh, we need to use AI. I don't know where to begin. There's almost this, how can I lead you along while allowing you freedom and putting structure around that? That's going to drive better learning than other things. Ask Casey here. Casey, for you, you work out religiously like I do. Is it as enjoyable if it's not as structured?
No, I just wander around.
You just wander around. You're like, well, maybe I could do this. Your workouts aren't as effective. You have the freedom to design it, but
I don't work out and I'm not.
Whatever. I know you. You are healthier than you're going to give yourself credit for. But to that point, Casey and this is the other thing that I would say. You're right. I have written multiple books. I was flying home from New York yesterday, and I bought a 500-page book called Mastering the Data Paradox. I live and breathe data and AI, but I won't stop learning. I can't. There's too much going on. So for you, Casey, your fitness journey is so centered on the fact that you know so much. Now imagine the more knowledge we dump, that sounds bad, that we give to the clients of SaaS companies to be able to truly understand the why behind the tool and the benefits behind it. It is so much easier to design free choice structure. That kind of sounds funny because the knowledge base is there.
It's awesome, Jordan. You've been doing this for some time. You speak at hundreds of these different events. You're the keynote. If you were to give our audience 2 or 3 of the latest trends, or I don't want to say the words trends because that seems like it's just a buzzword, but what are the 1 or 2 topics that people should really start to be considering off of all these topics you go out and discuss? What are the 1 or 2 that you're like, if I could just get people to dial in on 1 or 2 of these things, this is what it would be?
Number 1, learn how to augment yourself with AI. I could build for you two right now. I could sit down at your company. If you have a license to ChatGPT, to Copilot, I could build an internal large language model for you in about 5 or 10 minutes. And people are like, what? I was like, yep, it's that simple. The power sits behind the model. The ease of build is so freaking great. And so what I would say, now, granted, that is a very basic large language model. Don't think that's it's taking the model and then we train it, right? And we do more. But I could stick it right on top of a SharePoint. As long as I've been doing it right for a little bit now, that's what I would say. Who knows if I'm doing it right? Hopefully I am. But number 1 is learn to augment yourself in such a way that empowers you with all this technology at our fingertips. Number 2 is get ready for more. And that sounds funny, but artificial general intelligence is about here. This is something back in, I think, 2022 that was predicted to be like 30 years away. This year in June, I heard a prediction that it will be here between 2025 and 2027. I would argue some of it is already here. For those who don't know what AGI is, you have narrow AI, which is generative AI, ChatGPT, content creation, that sort of thing. Artificial general intelligence is when AI is us. It is human. It's reasoning and doing all that. The US, I have to find the article and I'll send it to you so everyone can read it. I believe just launched a Manhattan Project around artificial general intelligence. It's here. And this is going to fundamentally shift many more things in a positive way. Don't get me wrong. There's always the incentives. Like I picture a world where you could use generative AI, AGI, and quantum computing to create customized cancer treatments. I've got 2 family members having to deal with cancer right now. Could we create more specific cures? Can we create ways to overcome famine because the computing power and all that? But there is the negative side of it. We'll see where that goes. Those would probably, like, the augmentation of AI is probably the number 1 thing people need to get good at, because every tool purports to have AI in it. I question them on that. I doubt they do, or at least big AI, but it's coming. And can you augment the way you do things using generative AI? I hope everyone uses it daily. I'm on it all the time. I hope people are using it to optimize their calendars. I hope they're doing that. That would be the number 1 thing I'd focus on. The number 2 is just studying things out there. What is AGI? There's a great book called The Coming Wave. What does that look like? That's all about AI. And the Microsoft CEO of AI, Mustafa Suleyman, is one of the authors. He founded DeepMind, bought by Google, one of the most brilliant minds you're going to find. He's very realistic on where AI is going. And so it's a matter of The more, it's that old saying, the more you know. Yeah, study, like read, follow people, listen to podcasts. The more knowledge we can gain, the more we critically think on things, the better off we're going to be.
I think Casey and I are just stunned, Jordan. We're trying to think through what to do there.
Either you're like, why in the world did we bring this nerd on? That's what you're thinking.
No, basically what I think is so wild here is that when it comes to data, there's so much to data and AI, right? There's so much that it can be overwhelming, it can be scary, but it's also extremely exciting, and the possibilities for the future are really, really wonderful.
I agree. Jordan, and the one thing, can I add to what you're just saying?
Yeah.
Is when approached right, I think one of the fears that is out there is what happens to the human. When you approach it right, it should be human-centric. So that's why we should learn to augment ourselves with the technology. That's where the excitement can come into play. And the other thing I will say is every single person on the planet has a place at the data and AI table. I don't need you to be some advanced engineer and data scientist. Can you sit at the table, use your curiosity, your critical thinking, your creativity, and just create and utilize these things to empower you? You do that, you're going to be so much better off than sitting back waiting for them to overtake you, because they will, unless we're proactive on things.
Yeah, Jordan, so good. Man, this has been an awesome conversation. Love having you on, obviously. Jordan, we've known each other for years, but I don't know how often you get a chance to listen to Casey and I do this, but one of the things that we always like to ask people as our last question is, hey, this is therapy, right? There's been some exciting things. We've pulled back the curtain on some stuff that maybe people don't want to look at, right, at the same time. And so anytime you sit through a therapy session, the most important thing is at the end, there has to be some call to action. There has to be something that I'm going to do differently. Yep. And so if you could give our audience any one piece of advice, one piece of homework that you could ask them to do from here, what would it be?
First thing is, I'm going to tell them you are better off than you think you are. You're better at data than you think you are. You're better at AI than you think you are. And you have a place at the table. Just because it's not your background doesn't mean you don't fit in. You do. I want creativity. I want storytellers. I want people who can draw. I want people who think obscurely, because that brings these things to life. So no, you're better off than you probably think you are. You probably like that girl who saw me on the train. I'm too stupid to read this. Nope, you're missing the point. You have a place here. But in order for that place to succeed, you have to put in effort. So I'm going to send a list of books. I'm going to send some people to follow, and data and AI podcasts. Your call to action is to pick one of those sources and create a routine of at least an hour a week study. I hope it's a lot more than that, but at least an hour a week study around data and AI, just to better prepare yourself, just to make sure you're sticking up somewhat on all the trends that are out there. It's hard. I'm as nerdy as they come. I can't keep up on everything. There's more coming out all over the place. And so that's your call to action, is to find whatever source is there, spend an hour a week studying it. And I'm not done with my call to action. You better journal it. If you don't write down what you're learning, I'm afraid you're going to forget it. You might remember a few things, but I hope people wrote down things on here, right? I'm a huge journaler. I have 4 journals right now, broken into 4 different categories. Journal. So there's your call to action.
Awesome.
So good, Jordan.
So good.
Okay. Jordan has a great following on LinkedIn. Go follow him on LinkedIn. Sounds like he's going to give everybody a book list, maybe a post there on LinkedIn in addition. And maybe he can share that with Casey and I. We'll see if we can get it added to the show notes. But Jordan, thank you so much.
Buy Jordan's book. Go buy Jordan's books. Right.
I appreciate
follow this
it.
guy. That's an easy one too. Yeah. Go do that. But thank you,
I'll
Jordan.
give a sneak peek. I have a formula that is a part of my 5th book for next year that I'm writing. AI plus data plus HI, which is human intelligence, IQ, plus EI, which is emotional intelligence, that equals success. And notice how much of that was people. So, well, that's the sneak peek of what book 5 is going to entail.
It's awesome.
So good.
Excited for it.
Jordan, thanks for joining us today, and good luck on the trail out there next time you run your next ultra, my friend.
Thank you very much. Have a good one, guys. Thanks for having me, of course.
SaaS Therapy is brought to you by Brainstorm, the SaaS platform for SaaS adoption. Learn more at brainstorminc.com.